Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stitching Tales. I am Johanna Lundström, the author of several sewing books, including Master the Cover Stitch Machine and Sewing Activewear, and I also have my own sewing pattern line and a YouTube channel under the name The Last Stitch.
My name is Malena Hjerpe, and I work as a freelance pattern maker, and I also create my own PDF patterns under the name Hazelhen Patterns.
And if long-time listeners is wondering who is this deep-voiced person speaking right now, well, it's me, Johanna, but I've just came up from a really bad cold, so I think my voice is probably going to sound a little bit different this time, and when I start laughing, it's going to be a whole thing as well. I think you can already hear it, but otherwise I'm okay. So we thought we were definitely going to make sure that you get your weekly podcast episode, despite this little hiccup.
Yeah, we will power through, and fingers crossed we will manage.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that could happen is that my voice start to break or I start to cough, because we had one of those episodes way back that we actually ended up having to can because I was coughing so much. but fingers crossed, definitely it's not going to happen this time. Anyways, this episode is from you, our dear listeners, to you, our dear listeners, because what is the topic in today's episode, Malena?
We are going to have a Q&A episode.
Yay!
So lovely to get questions from you, and just to hear what are you guys thinking about and wondering about and wanting us to talk about, basically.
Yeah, because we love getting your questions, and if you feel inspired by this episode and you feel like you want to answer us stuff, we love doing this Q&A episode. So you can just drop us a comment over at our Instagram account, Stitching Tales Pod, or our YouTube channel, Stitching Tales Pod. You can comment under our videos there, because we also do a video podcast, and you can also email us at stitchingtalespod@gmail.com. And honestly, I think so far we've gotten one email. All the other comments, all the other Q&As are when we do like Q&A sessions on our Instagram account or DMs or comments on a post. So if you want
I think
to,
that's the easiest way for to send comments.
Don't be shy, email us. We love getting emails. So we will, of course, link to the email address in the show notes of this episode. So if you feel inclined to email us, don't be scared. We are opening the emails, and I will be absolutely thrilled to see another email in our email box. I just checked this morning, still 0 emails.
As long as you send us comments, anyway, it's fine. Whatever works for you.
Absolutely. It's just that I just want the kind of gratification of opening the email box once and seeing one email. So, and if you just send us one email and then keep on commenting on our socials. Oh, all right then. So shall we start with the questions, Malena? Do you want to pick the first one?
Yes, I can pick the first one. This one is in Swedish, so I will try to translate it now quickly in my head. Hi, I want to hear your tip for how to get a sleeve into the sleeve armhole on a shirt or blouse, so that the like gatherings, the ease will be evenly distributed. And usually, I mean, you don't have gatherings, like you don't have a puff sleeve, but let's do both. Let's talk about like a sleeve without a puff and with a puff, because I think it could be different challenges.
Yeah, very good.
What are your best tips for that one?
Well, we should start with the ease thing. So ease is what you see mostly on woven sleeves, that there is a slight extra length to the sleeve that is eased at the top of the sleeve cap. So, and that gives bigger movement, Malena. Is that correct? And the thing is with that, if you're doing shirt or maybe a tailored jacket, that gathers, they should not be visible. Sometimes you can see on a sleeve there's a slight puckering or slight gathers at the top of the sleeve. Those are the ease. But the trick here is, of course, to do it so subtly that the sleeve head looks kind of flat when you wear the shirt or the jacket or the similar kind of woven satin sleeve. So I agree that is a challenge. I think there's a lot of nuance to this. First of all, some sewing patterns I do find that they have too much ease in the sleeves. So maybe sometimes it could be a good idea if you do get struggles you don't get rid of all the gathers, is actually to reduce the extra ease. And in our excellent book Fit for Knits, we show how to do that, because when you're sewing satin sleeves on a knit garment, then which Malena's taught me, you do not you actually have a slightly negative ease. So the seam line on the sleeve head of the sleeve cap is actually slightly shorter than the sleeve opening, which is the opposite for a woven garment. So first of all, that could be an issue. Sometimes I find it for just a smaller size, it's like 2 centimeters of extra ease. It's going to be so hard to hide that.
A lot. I mean, it might work on a jacket, a wool jacket, because that can really shape itself almost. But on a shirt fabric, it's not gonna. Then you're gonna have a small puff sleeve basically, because those gathers they won't disappear. They will be visible. I think like 1.5 is like the maximum. Could be more on a wool jacket, but it's 1.5 on a shirt blouse fabric.
Yeah, and I guess there are lots of different ways of doing, the actual easing. So you have to do it in one way or another. I guess a common method that is shown in sewing books classic is to do gathering stitches, similar to what you would do with sew gathers. You sew 1 or 2 straight rows, straight stitching between because usually they have ease markings on ease notches on the sleeve pattern. A trick here is to sew, I think I'm going to say this right. So when you sew the ease stitches, you should sew it with the sleeve, the right side facing up, because you're going to pull the thread on the reverse side. So I think that makes it easier to pull it. Now, I'm just a little bit cold right now, so my brain is not working properly. But I have instructions for this, and I will post a photo on our Instagram account, Stitching Test Pod, about this. But 1 or 2 rows, and then you can pull it together. The most important thing here, which is your question as well, is how do you distribute those gathers evenly? And of course, one trick is that before you start gathering, you always have a notch at the top of the sleeve cap that shows where the shoulder seams and the sleeve cap should align. When you start gathering, that notch is going to disappear into the gather. So my recommendation is always to put a pin, regardless if you use a clip or chalk or whatever you use to mark it on the sleeve. Put a pin on it so you can still ensure that you do see that spot. So you need, because that's the most important thing, that you make sure that the gathers are evenly spread between those mid points between the back sleeve and the front sleeve. So that's my number 1 tip. And secondly, I think I'm normally not a big fan of pinning, but here it is a good idea to actually have several pins on the way, because if you start removing pins, you will probably push the gathers in front of you. So all of a sudden, if you start sewing from the back, then you will end up having a lot of gathers at the top of the sleeve rather than evenly distributed ease along the entire sleeve cap of the method. So that's definitely one of the things. So just have short increments between the gathers and try to ensure that everything is eased inside that distance until then you start sewing and keep on sewing. So that's my tip if we're talking about the classical way of doing ease in the sleeves. So what are your take on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's really good to have 2 rows of stitchings that you are pulling together, because then it's so much easier to control that the ease is spread out evenly. And then, as you said, like you want to have them on each side of the sewing line, so it actually really the ease there, you can control the amount of puckerings or gatherings so much easier. And I usually, when I sew this, I tie one end a knot, and then it's so much easier also to pull the thread and to distribute the gatherings evenly. And also, when you pin the sleeve head into the armhole, I you usually have like the garment inside out, and then you pin the sleeve. You have it placed inside the garment. Then it's just easier to pin it and to be able to sew it as well. So you basically sew you sew it from the inside when you are at the sewing machine. It's just easier to. Otherwise, it's just going to be messy with the fabric layers and everything. But and if the fabric or the pattern doesn't have any notches, it usually, I think most patterns should have notches, but I think a good placement for the ease is like if you think about a third down from the shoulder seam, a third down from the front and a third back from on the back. I think that's like a good placement for the ease. But there is not some exact, like this is exactly where you should place it. It's a little bit interesting also on like a suit or a jacket. The tailoring method is you also have like a negative ease on the sleeve head under the arm. So there you have like plus ease on the sleeve head top to create a little bit nice volume, but you have minus ease, I think, under. I'm not a tailor, but I just find these kind of things like very fascinating, like really how you sculpture the fabric to create this 3D shape. So it's really, it's cool how they do that. But then, as I said, they usually have some wool fabric, thicker fabrics, so it's a lot easier to work to get shape in those kind of fabric.
Yeah, it's usually because it's easier when you do get gathers when you're sewing a wool jacket. You can usually with steam and shaping and moist and basically remove those extra puckering in a way that, unfortunately, for instance, if you're sewing a shirt made of a woven cotton fabric, for instance, it's going to be really hard to fix it afterwards. What you have is basically what you have, and what you explain from sewing from the inside, because I do assume that you still, when you describe the method, you still sew with the sleeve piece facing up, or do you sew with the sleeve head? Because it's also nice if you sew with the sleeve opening facing up. It's also hard to see if the gathers are shifting, I think. So for me, it's easier to see. And
exactly. You sew on the bodice is towards the sewing machine, and then you see the sleeve head when you are sewing. So then it's also a bit easier to control to see the gatherings. And if you have a puff sleeve, you basically just have more gatherings. There are so much gatherings that it is actually visible, and use 2 threads again, 2 sewing lines of the gathering thread. It's just going to be so much easier if you have 2 instead of just 1. So much easier to control. Yeah,
very, very true. And also if you want to ensure, for instance, if you're working with slightly stretchy fabric, it's good to measure the distance. If the notches are good, you can the sleeve will show the finished length of the gathers. So then you can just double check that when you gather, that you pulled everything, that it is this exact same amount. And again, as you say, fix it with a knot, like Malena says, and pins to keep it from shifting, because it's really important. So for instance, if the finished width when the sleeve head is gathered, for instance, on the back sleeve, it's 2 centimeters, and for 2 centimeters in the front, then just measure and ensure that is the exact distance if there is no clear notches, that you can show that. So those are also good things to double check before you start sewing. And basically, the only thing that you need to keep is to prevent the gathers from shifting forwards, because I think that's probably the most common thing that we encounter, and I'm sure that you who wrote it also, Lena, thank you. That's probably the thing that you are probably also encountering. There are some more advanced way of doing ease stitching, which I sometimes try to do, is that you use. I've shown this when if you do have a little bit of the problems with the shifting, that the gathers are shifting forwards when you're sewing, you could use a sharp tool. I'm holding up now a pen, but you can use an awl or another sharp tool, and then you can, when you're sewing, to mitigate this issue, you could gently
have a
moving
walking foot.
Walking foot, yeah. But you with the sharp object, you're pressing the gathers towards the presser foot so that they are staying straight, because you don't want them to like diagonally moving forward. So you can do that with a rhythmic motion, so you just keep the gathers or the ease towards the presser foot just gently, because that also allows you to stop the shifting forward, which it is tricky. And I'm actually right now, if you're watching the video version, you can do that on YouTube. I'm wearing my own pattern, the girly top. It has actually puff sleeves. So as you can see, and I'm probably, if we look close, I think you can see that I too sometimes struggle. I think there's a little bit of shifting here and there. But don't be too hard on yourself, because it is tricky. It is really tricky to sew gathers. But luckily, for instance, when you're doing a puff sleeve, you don't really see that. The most important thing is that the gathers start and stop end at the same spot on both sleeves. You will probably not be able to do exactly symmetrically. Some gathers will be a little slightly bigger, some be a little bit smaller, but that also add some interest to the garment. And if you go in and look to ready to wear, you will see the same thing happening. So don't be too hard on yourself. As I say, I'm a pretty proficient sewist, and to be honest, I can definitely see that they could be better. There could be improvement, but it's nothing. I don't really thought about that.
And if you have issues with it, that it is shifting too much, check the pressure foot pressure. It might be that it's pushing too much on the fabric. So if you ease out the pressure a little bit, then it might be a little bit easier for the old fabric to go under the foot. So on both overlocks and on a regular sewing machine. So maybe just temporarily lighten up the pressure a little bit.
Yeah, really good suggestions. And if you want to have more ideas on how to add gathers on knits, because then you can also employ the use of elastic thread, elastics. I will link to a blog post where I show some other methods of doing gathers. And you can also, and this is a bonus tip, and I show that more in that blog post as well, you can also use a serger and increase the differential feed and then pull the threads. That's also another way of achieving pretty nice even gathering if you want to try something different than the regular straight stitch method, which is good and solid. But sometimes it's fun to try other things to see which method you prefer when you're doing it the next time.
Sounds great. Hope that will help with your sleeve making.
Yeah, excellent question. Thank you, Lena.
Do you want to take the next question?
We're doing, and this is another question in Swedish. It's from Snut. And they ask, when is the next pattern? And I'm looking at you, Malena, mostly, but I can...
Soon. It is actually being tested right now as we speak.
Wow!
Yay!
Wow, that's excellent. Wow, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so I have seen a few pictures from some testers already, but the deadline for the feedback is 4th of May, so they still have a little bit over a week left to test it. So I'm looking forward to it. After that, it will only be, making all the other PDF pattern, like projector files and copy shop files, and doing corrections if needed. And I tried to take some pictures of samples that I wore, and I have given 2 samples to my friend who is a professional model and photographer. So fingers crossed those... I have talked about this before, but I wasn't happy about the colors on the photo samples. So I gave them to her. I'm like, do your magic. Worst case, black and white pictures will be fine as well. I'm happy with any pictures at this moment.
Yeah, and this is so interesting as well because as a consumer, you probably do not even register that. You know, you think it's just a nice color, but you know, we always have this vision, and sometimes we change the vision or have a realization, and there's always this nagging feeling of dissatisfaction when something is not quite what we realized that we wanted. So it's sometimes it's hard to appreciate the fact that the photos and everything are great because the fabric choice is not what we wanted. I have a couple of those as well in my back catalog of patterns, and I'm like, and I can't even bring myself to sew up new samples. And you know, every time I look at them, I'm like, what did I think?
Yeah, no, but it's so annoying when it's like, didn't, not exactly what you had envisioned. But I try to take a couple of pictures myself. But oh my God, it's hard. I don't know how people do it when they have so amazing pictures of what they have made, and it's just like, I don't know, the lighting and it's it is. I want to take a course like how to take pictures of your own makes. That would be in big need, but fingers crossed it's gonna be in May.
Wow, that's soon. 'Cause
Yes.
we're recording this at the end of April.
Late May, obviously.
Yeah, okay. I was like, aren't you going on holiday tomorrow? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no. In May, within May month, before June. So that's my that's my own deadline.
Wow, I'm so excited. It's going to be so interesting, and we're definitely going to do a follow-up episode on that when the time has come. So very exciting to hear that. It makes me so happy because we talked about this your pattern for a while now, and I know that when something gets your full attention, everything goes really, really fast. So I'm not surprised that you're so further along in the process now from just a couple of months ago when you hadn't really been working on it for quite a while. So I'm very happy to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's this like you have. I've taken like a year off working on this pattern a couple of times, so that's why it has just been dragging on forever. So it's actually going to be really nice to be done with it, and I want to say move on, but now it comes the marketing aspect of it, and that's future me problem.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna think about that today.
No, don't think about that today, but also don't forget about it, as known as the Johanna method. So.
But do you have anything in the pipeline that you want to share?
Yeah, I do, because just this morning, because I've been in my sick bed for an entire week, and I've been really under the weather and under the ice, and I get such low energy and kind of like sad and unmotivated about everything when I get sick. So it's not like a peak. I mean, surprise, who gets super happy when they're down with fever and a terrible cold? No one, I guess. So I guess, but yeah, sorry if it makes no sense today, but this is the first time I've been outside the door in a week. When I finally kind of crawl into the studio. But yeah, I do have some plans now, and I will talk more about that once I've finished it. But yes, I have at least one, I think two or maybe three sewing patterns in my head right now. So I will not be able to work on them right now, but it's gonna be jersey. I think my decision right now is to continue doing knit sewing patterns primarily, just because that's a good way of keeping a clear branding for what I do. I do wear lots of wovens as well, so eventually if I keep doing sewing patterns, I definitely want to go into woven and jeans and everything like that. But I think for me it makes more sense to keep on that avenue and to make sure that I can offer something interesting and different for knit garments. So that's my plan. So stay tuned. I'm going to have some internal meetings with my colleague and pattern drafter Malena and figure if this is feasible. But yeah, something is brewing in my head for sure. And we also, of course, have our own book coming out also in the future with sewing patterns. So it's going to be a lot of sewing patterns from us, I think, in the upcoming year. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Amazing. That's great. Something to look forward to.
Yes.
The next question from Spaceship Kitten. Lovely name. Did you try to use a projector pattern yet? Have you tried any?
No, because I don't have a projector and I don't have this headspace. I did, because when I released my Vide knit pants sewing pattern last fall, I, for the first time, with the wonderful help of Malena's support, managed to actually include projector files. This is still my only pattern that has it. So far, I have not received any complaints about the projector files. I don't know if anyone has tried that. If you have, please drop us a note, because it would be interesting to hear. But so I hope and assume that if someone has tried the projector files, that it has worked out. Or they are maybe suffering in silence, but hopefully not.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It usually is, no news is good news. So
yeah,
if
true.
no one had an issue with it, I mean, why would they reach out and say, yes, it worked? So
yeah. And you, Malena, what's your status on the projector?
No, I have exact same answer. I don't have a projector, so I haven't tried but on my latest pattern, the Malva T, I have a projector file of it. And I plan in the future to make projector files for all the patterns that I have. Not at the... When I get more time, I will do that. But no, I haven't tried actually a projector file myself. I mean, it sounds really amazing, especially when you do samples and things, to just like skip the step of having to print out the pattern. Now I have a big plotter, so I don't have to do the A4 letter size and piece them all together. I can just print out the full scale patterns right away. But still, it's that extra step to cut out that one as well. Yeah. So it would be nice, but I don't have any. It's not on my buying list at the moment, even though it would be really nice.
Yeah, and it's also a great way of being more mindful of the resources, because then you do not have all the paper. So to me, I think projector file is brilliant. And just like Malena, it's the lack of equipment. And I also think sometimes there's always a hurdle when you learn new stuff. So you always feel an automatic resistance. And I think for me that is true. It's not just an investment thing, but, you know, having to set it up, the configure it, calibration. And just like you, Malena, I have a plotter printer, a large format printer. So for me, it's also not as time consuming and to have to paste all these small paper pieces together, which I think also, if I were a home user and had a good space to hang the projector, I would definitely look into it as well. And I'm sure that in 10 years' time, this is going to be like the standard. So I'm very happy that we finally got on the bandwagon. And that was a lot to you, dear listeners, because I think one of the first episodes, we talked about this. And you, Malena, you made some research and realized that, you know, there are a massive community out there doing it. And you also got some feedback that projector was a good thing to go into. So yeah, we're doing it. And definitely next patterns, we're going to keep on doing projector files. I have no plans of doing something else, and just like you, I plan to do all the patterns as well, but I think I will prioritize making sure that the new patterns have the projector files. And
today's, I mean, printers are not that expensive to buy the actual printer, but oh my god, the color!
It's insane.
I get so frustrated. I recently bought new, what do you say, colors? Patron. What is the English word for it? The color for the printers. A couple of weeks ago, a month ago, I bought new colors for every single color, both for my big plotter and for my small regular printer. And HP, the brand of the printer, they don't do any other brands for their colors anymore. So I bought a cheaper version of the colors, and the printer is not doing it.
No. So they have discontinued that cartridge model.
Yeah, I don't know why. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't work with other brands. You have to buy their own specific.
Yeah, I know this because it's probably the way of like stopping, that kind of market for.
Yeah, no, it's monopoly
copies.
to like sell their own, because the printers are cheap. That's not a problem, but the color, that's the thing that is.
Bummer.
So it's like so annoying. And I try to mail this company that I haven't opened up them. I just opened up one and tried it and see that it didn't work. But it was like a month after I bought it, so I can't really return them. So I mailed the company like, is it possible that I still can return them? I mean, the package is not broken or anything like for the other ones. I mean, one I tried, so that I can't return, obviously. But I haven't got a reply from them. And I mailed them a couple of times and they are just ignoring me. And I mean, buying all those colors for both my printers, that was expensive. So, yeah. I might actually have been able to buy a projector file for that money instead. Thinking now about the amount of money I spent on the colors.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm not bitter.
No, I mean, it does make a good case for really looking into projector files in the future, as you say, because I had to do that on my like home printer, the regular A4 printer, basically because I was just printing out a map for birthday present, because I wanted to have it in full color, and of course I had to go out and buy cartridges, and I had the same because I realized that my print is quite old, but it works, and I realized that they didn't have all the colors, so I was starting to maybe the Canon is phasing out these particular cartridges because there are not that many printers out there anymore. And then of course it doesn't accept third party because it reads on the chip and then refuses to use it. So all right, guys, it's time to go projector. That's the oh my god, can this please let me wait until 2026. Especially today, I don't have the energy for any new. Please let me be a late adopter because I cannot muster the thought of having to do this. And you're so right, it's so annoying because when you add it up, we would probably be better off just investing in a solid, not that expensive projector and keep it that way and have it set up in our studios.
Yeah. That's future us problem. Let's not do today.
No, right. Yeah, I got in a bad mood and I was not feeling that great even before. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what printers do to you. It's just...
Yeah. Sorry, Spaceship Kitten. The short answer, no, we haven't. But we are perhaps even more inclined now more than ever to start looking into it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. We have another question from, it's going to be a SOS MW1. Hi, I'm a big fan of yours and I'm planning to buy your t-shirt book as soon as it comes out. Your patterns and explanations are top notch. Well, thank you. I have a question for you as my knit gurus. Oh, thank you. Do you stay stitch knit fabric? I've messed up a couple of V-neck knit dresses and I'm not sure how to deal with that bias. Should I stay stitch with a straight stitch, a shallow zigzag stitch, use interfacing strips? If so, in what direction? I feel it's a matter more commonly dressed in the woven real, I'm sorry, and I definitely found it more problematic with knits and their stretch. Yeah, stay stitching on knits. Malena, have you ever done that?
No, I don't think it's a good idea to stay stitch. I think that must actually stretch out the bias seam even more, or the bias pat. No, so definitely not. Here it is the same issue, I think, with the neckline for just a round neck t-shirt as well. It's more visible on a V-neck because the distance of that is longer. But I think you have to think about or work with how you sew it, using a rib attachment or a binding or something that is shorter compared to the V-neck or that bias cut, so that neckband or binding or whatever, it holds it in. And to know exactly how long that neckband or bias tape or whatever should be, that is really tricky to know. It really depends on the fabric, if it is a rib or a single jersey, and what kind of recovery and stretch it has. So it is really tricky. I totally understand your frustration, but it is that's the thing that's gonna keep it together, so make sure that it recovers well and won't stretch out and grow.
Yeah. And we just had a little discussion with that, I think, Malena, the other week, because we are, as you mentioned, so we were working on our next book, and we talked about, V-neck band, which you specifically mentioned in your question. How much should the negative ease or be on a V-neck compared to a neckband that is across, like a round or a scoop neck neckband, which is a lot of cross. So there's a lot of, as you say, Malena, it's a little bit of a trickery, and it also depends on the material. For instance, if you're using a rib knit for the V-neck, then it should probably be slightly shorter. But if you're using self fabric, like maybe a lightweight cotton or something similar that it still has stretch, then you should the neckband pattern piece should probably be a bit longer. And if you're using a sewing pattern for this and you have had issues, the probably is that the fact that the pattern piece that came included in the pattern is not suited for the fabric. So it's not really you, if you know what I mean, because you cannot. There's no way of fixing a neckband that is too long, because that is it's basically what Malena said. That is the stay stitching, the fact that you stretch out the neckband and that keeps the fabric in place. So when it pulls back, you get a neutral flat front, and that is completely dependent on what type of fabric, how much stretch and how much recovery. So this is not an easy thing to figure out. So it's probably good to do a bit of a sample and try to see. Just cut out the V-neck first on either if you have a fabric scrap, and just try to figure out if you don't have to be an exact percentage, but if it's too long, it's gonna be a massive. In my experience with a lot of sewing pattern is that the neckband piece is almost always too long rather than too short.
Yeah, and on. For example, when making sewing with a cover lock, cover stitch, you can sew bindings really beautiful there. And I have it. I haven't tried it yet on my own machine. But you have this little thing that you attach to the machine, and you have these specific strips then for the binding, and you basically pull it through like some. I think we're gonna have. Show some pictures on our Instagram for what I mean, but that basically makes this strip stretch out a little bit when it's sewn, so that gives it tension, so it pulls in a little bit, or not pulls in, but it doesn't make the fabric stretch out when worn. So it's really, it is tricky to know exactly before how much tension, how much it should be stretched out. Because it so depends on the fabric. And I can say in general, I mean, if you have a round neck t-shirt, that the neckband, if it's a rib, it needs to be stretched out a lot more because it's round, and the inner circle of the neckband, you want it flat, so it has to be shorter because of that, and also that it should keep it together. If you have a very long V-neck, I mean, that's a straight line, so I don't think it should be so much shorter as it is on a round neck, but still a little bit shorter. Maybe 85% is a good percentage of the neckband. But here you really need to make samples and test it out. But I mean, you never see, for example, on on a wrap dress, jersey wrap dress. I mean, that has, I think, the longest bias cut. You never see it just folded once and sewn with a twin needle. Maybe if it's done like that, it has a clear elastic on the inside or some elastic kind of thing. But on a ready-to-wear garment, there's always a binding or attached band or something. Something that holds it together. It can't just be folded and stitched, and it's not gonna work.
Exactly, because I actually am the owner of a Diane von Furstenberg silk jersey. Yeah, unfortunately my tummy is not hasn't there's enough room for it anymore. But yeah, even on that as well, it has interfaced facing to keep it in place, and a stabilizing interfacing strip to keep that from growing.
Can you share some pictures of that, because that's
for
my
sure.
absolute looking how those fancier brands do these kind of things. It's such a good lesson to see how they
I will
do
definitely
it.
post some pictures of it, and because I agree with you, Malena, about the stay stitching. I do not believe in that. That kind of goes against the grain, because we're talking about working with soft knit and stretchy knit. So you definitely need something that is suited for that kind of, and using a stabilizer that has some stretch, such as clear elastic or rib knit or something like that, or the binding. Those are the ways to go. But we totally understand your pain. We're probably in the process of figuring it out for ourselves now when we're developing patterns or maybe instructions for how to add a V-neck. So yeah, we hear you. It's not easy, and also there are lots of different ways of sewing V-necks as well, which you can definitely look into. Perhaps there is a method that is a little bit easier than the one that you find in sewing instructions. And again, try to make sure that the stretch is evenly distributed with the help of notches when you stretch it out. That can also, of course, help. But yeah, we hear you. It's not easy. It isn't. I mean,
no, definitely not. It is tricky. Let's see if we have. Should we end here maybe, or?
Yeah, we should probably. We do have to, because we do. We love to get more questions, but we also need to to record another episode, because Malena is going on holiday tomorrow. So we're definitely going to crank this out as much as we can now, so we have some episodes in the can, so we can keep our weekly schedule despite colds and holidays and other occasions that are happening. Life things for sure. But we have more questions, and of course we love to get more questions, and we're definitely going to do more Q&A episodes in the future. So if you didn't get your question answered, don't worry, we will try to get through to them one at a time, and we're very, very happy. So keep those questions coming. We love to do these Q&A episodes, and they're quite popular as well, so I know that you listeners appreciate them as well, because we get to think about things, and it's so nice, because a lot of these questions are things I would never have thought about myself to do a podcast episode about. So I'm very, very happy that we get this outside input on the content.
Market research for us as well.
Totally.
I mean, now when we're gonna write a book about sewing t-shirts, I mean, this is great. Now this is a thing that we need to talk about in our book, basically.
Very, very, very true. And a lot of these questions are absolutely. I think it's good to do like a good Q&A, like common misconceptions about sewing knits and stuff like that. It would be also interesting, and things like do's and don'ts when you're sewing with knits. I get a lot of new topic ideas as well. Just thank you for your great questions about stay stitching knits and how to sew necklines. So very much thank you, and for listening with us and my raspy voice, but I think it's going okay. At least I've not lost it yet. So thank you so much for listening. My name is Johanna Lundström.
And my name is Malena Hjerpe. Bye bye.
Bye bye.